Imagine a world on the brink of chaos, where hope seems nearly extinguished, yet one young woman hikes through the relentless mud and blood of battlefields, stirs the spirits of the weary, and restores faith in a future once thought lost. Who is this figure so resolute, so unwavering, that she would defy not only the armies of England but the very conventions of society? What did she possess that granted her a legendary status that transcends even the boundaries of time? Join me on this compelling journey as we unveil the remarkable story of Joan of Arc, the extraordinary young woman who became a military icon and immortalized herself in history. You might be wondering how a peasant girl from a small village in France could rise to such towering heights of military prowess and influence. How did her name echo through the corridors of power and instill fear in her enemies? Today, we will dive deep into the life of Joan, her surroundings, her formidable spirit, and her incredible feats that have fascinated generations. By the end, you will find clarity on how one woman transformed into a legend, inspiring countless individuals along the way. Joan's origins play a pivotal role in understanding her extraordinary journey. Born around 1412 in Domremy, a small village nestled in the verdant landscapes of northeastern France, Joan was raised during the backdrop of the 100 Years' War, where England and France clashed over territorial claims and the very identity of the French state. You wouldn't expect a farming community, with its daily fervor of crops and cattle, to give rise to a military icon, right? Yet, it was here that the seeds of her destiny were sown. From a young age, Joan reported experiencing divine visions and supernatural guidance, claiming to hear the voices of saints, particularly Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. Imagine being just a teenage girl, and yet feeling that the fate of an entire nation rests upon your shoulders. How could her belief in these celestial messages lead her to rally an army and wage war? The audacity to think such thoughts must have seemed delusional at best. Yet Joan dug deeper, connecting her visions to the plight of her countrymen under the occupation of the English. It was as if each voice she heard was stitching together the fabric of her identity and mission. What's particularly captivating is how Joan's inner resolve prompted her to approach a local military leader within months of hearing her initial calling. This leader was none other than Robert de Baudricourt, a captain in the French army, who initially dismissed her claims as the irrational dreams of a girl. However, she astounded him with knowledge of events in his camp that she could not have possibly known. What was it about Joan that captivated him in such a way? Could it be the fire in her soul, radiating an undeniable energy that forced others to recognize her as the potential savior of France? Despite her miraculous first impressions, the path she forged was not without its treacherous turns. Picture this, a young girl, just 17, fiercely advocating for a crown prince she had never met, desperately fighting against the entrenched norms of a male-dominated military hierarchy. Joan persuaded Baudricourt to help her meet the future King Charles VII, a meeting that would alter the course of history. What transpired next was nothing short of extraordinary, as their initial skepticism would soon be set alight by the flames of possibility. Arriving at Charles's court in Chinon, Joan stunned those who gathered by demonstrating detailed knowledge of the future king's life, proving her divine purpose. With every word she spoke, she unraveled a tapestry of hope that had dulled under years of warfare. Crowning Charles at Reims became her undeniable mission, and with that, she would lead him forth, gripped by the fervor of her God-given visions. Did you know that even in the face of utter disbelief, Joan rallied an army just as if she were born for conquest, turning scrappy, disoriented soldiers into men of valor? The very armies, once paralyzed by fear, began to muster behind her as if she radiated an invincible charisma. But her first major military campaign, the Siege of Orleans in 1429, would serve as a testing ground for that invincibility. The city lay ensnared in a vicious stranglehold by the English forces. The fate of France felt irrevocably forfeited until this peasant girl appeared amid them, dressed in armor that could only befit the bravest. What do you think inspired such unwavering confidence among the troops and townspeople? It wasn't merely the lofty ideals of nationalism or providence, it was Joan herself, standing amidst danger and uncertainty, challenging the very heart of despair that gripped them. Her daring plan of attack was both audacious and brilliant. Employing strategic insights that belied her years, Joan laid a pathway for a surprise assault that would not only shake the English but also intoxicate the beleaguered French forces with newfound courage. Within days of her involvement, the siege was lifted, and the English retreated. It was then that her myth transcended her everyday personhood. She emerged a symbol of hope and indomitable spirit for the French, a beacon in the chaos of war. You won't want to miss the next remarkable turns of this story. Joan's military campaigns weren't merely spontaneous skirmishes, they were guided by an earnest belief in her divine mission to restore French sovereignty. Whispers of her triumph against the English soon began to accompany legends of her valiant bravery, leading up to her ultimate goal, the crowning of Charles VII in Reims. But did she realize that her influence would spill far beyond the stone walls of castles and the clash of swords? The spirit of uprising she ignited breathed life into a nation on its knees. You see, Joan's legendary status began to solidify, yet the undercurrents of tension brewed beneath the surface. As the triumphs unfolded, the challenges mounted. With the same fervor that rallied an army, Joan now faced skepticism from within. How could a young woman, seen as nothing more than a pawn of divine interest, engender trust amid military leaders and nobles who wielded established power? The tides of fate, however, have a whimsical way of shifting. A return to warfare meant returning to the perilous realms of treachery. In 1430, Joan's relentless ambition led her to attempt the liberation of Compiègne, a strategic stronghold taken by the Burgundians, allies of the English. But in a twist of fate, she was captured and sold to the English, marking a tragic turn in her story. Did the very society that heralded her as a hero not come to her defense? What do you think pushed her further into the conundrum of betrayal and capture, entrenching her myth only deeper into the annals of legend? In the dungeons of Rouen, stripped of military glory, Joan faced harrowing trials. Charges of heresy rang through the stone walls like a haunting echo, her claims dismissed by the very church she once sought to serve. Yet, her resilience shone brighter, unyielding in the face of death. Every statement she made was a testament to her undeterred spirit. In a courtroom festooned with skeptical clerical judges, she declared that she would not recant her visions. Would you have had the heart to stand steadfast against such overwhelming opposition? While her enemies hoped to extinguish her flame, distributing narratives that painted her as a charlatan, Joan's steadfast belief became a weapon in itself. Resolve poured from her as she clung to her divinely chosen path. The trial and eventual execution in 1431 marked a moment of moral culmination but was never to signal the end of her legacy. In fact, it would herald a resurrection of a different kind, transcending the chains of life into mythology. Her martyrdom ignited a wave of fervent nationalism that would surge across France, transforming her into a powerful icon. Even the enemies she faced could not wrest from her the allure she had cast over the hearts of much of Europe. The trials of her tribulations played into the intrigues of politics, eventually culminating in revolutionary doctrines of governance that would influence modern political ideologies of sovereignty and liberty. As centuries unfolded, Joan's stature grew, her legacy cemented beyond recognition. Her canonization in 1920 by the Catholic Church reaffirmed her position not only as a military leader but as a saint who would represent courage, vision, and faith across the ages. New generations viewed her not merely as a historical figure but a personification of struggle against oppression, a reminder that one voice can indeed begin a movement, a lesson that rings as relevant today as it did in her own time. Here's something you didn't expect. Joan of Arc's influence permeated not merely through France but danced along the threads of global history. From suffragettes fighting for women's rights to modern feminist movements, her story serves as a universal symbol of resilience, strength, and hope. Her life reminds us that with the right combination of belief and action, any individual can challenge the status quo and inspire change, kicking against the constraints of societal expectations. As our journey through the life of Joan of Arc draws to a close, reflect on the indelible marks she made on the tapestry of history. By elevating a peasant girl to a military icon, we discover that legends often begin in the most unassuming corners of our world. She defied conventions, united an army, and sparked a national consciousness, all rooted in the audacity of her convictions. So, what does Joan of Arc truly teach us today? Perhaps it's the realization that history is not merely a collection of past events but a living embodiment of human spirit and courage, waiting for the next generation to rise up. Joan's saga invites each of us to dare boldly, to advocate for our beliefs, and to become icons in our own right. What legends could you unveil in your life, inspired by the unwavering courage of one young girl who led an entire nation to victory? Now, as you step back from her legendary story, let the echoes of her voice linger. Every voice matters, every action counts, and in the words of Joan, I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Your story is waiting to be told, your battle needs a champion, and perhaps, just perhaps, you are meant to be that very legend.